Thank you for the thank you for the opportunity to address the Standing Committee on Environment and Sustainable Development regarding the study of disaster mitigation and insurance. First off, I'd like to formally introduce myself. As mentioned in the introduction, I am Brad McNevin, Chief Administrative Officer with Quinte Conservation. I've been employed in the environmental sector for the past 20 years, working with Fisheries and Oceans Canada, private environmental and engineering consulting firms, and currently with Quinte Conservation for the past 15 years. Quinte Conservation is one of 36 conservation authorities across the province of Ontario, and the only province to have these great organizations. Conservation authorities began to be established in the 1940s in order to address severe flooding and erosion problems. The most severe flooding on record in Ontario occurred in October 1954 when Hurricane Hazel passed through southern Ontario. 81 people died and damages were estimated at $180 million. Following the devastating impact of Hurricane Hazel, a flood forecasting and warning system was established in the province of Ontario. Several flood control facilities were significantly upgraded and constructed. Operational practices were designed to respond immediately to changing conditions, and regulations were put into place to limit and control future development and inappropriate land use activities in flood hazard areas. So I sit here today when many places throughout Ontario and other provinces have recently gone through significant flooding within the last month or so. And in my own region, we are still experiencing the Bay of Quinte and Lake Ontario surpassing their historic high water level established a mere 2 years ago in 2017. In contrast, the Quinte Conservation Region experienced a significant drought in 2016. It impacted many user groups, not just rural residents with dry wells. In fact, 100% of the Quinte Conservation Region was impacted in some way. Drought conditions observed in our lakes and rivers impacted fish and wildlife. Our agricultural community experienced hardship trying to keep livestock and crops watered, which resulted in financial impacts. Homeowners were hit with costs associated with purchasing bulk water to keep their households running. Municipalities had to implement bylaws for restricting water use. Extreme and unpredictable weather events are frequently occurring throughout the globe, and there is no doubt that it is prevalent throughout our region and our watersheds. These extreme and unpredictable weather events can be related to disasters in the form of impacts to our forests, lakes, rivers, wetlands, fish and wildlife, and also, as many people experienced recently, property destruction. We can build resilience to a changing climate through proper planning and adaptation. Quinte Conservation developed a climate change strategy in 2016, recognizing the reality of extreme weather events related to flooding, drought, and an increase of intense rainfall. Several action items have been developed with the aim of meeting our goal in helping our watershed residents both adapt and mitigate the impacts of climate change. Natural infrastructure has a pivotal role in preventing and mitigating impacts of extreme weather events. Collectively, conservation authorities own and protect 150,000 hectares of land, including forests, wetlands, areas of natural and scientific interest, recreational lands, natural heritage and cultural sites, as well as land for flood and erosion control. The forests, wetlands, moraines, grasslands, and other natural features and ecosystems found throughout Conservation Authority lands help to prevent and reduce the harmful impacts of climate change. They protect and improve water quality, reduce flooding, act as drinking water sources, increase biodiversity, and provide healthy habitats for a wide range of wildlife, fish, and birds. Conservation authorities play an important role in natural infrastructure protection, restoration, and management in Ontario. We see on a regular basis large-scale deforestation which takes away the natural ability for water to be absorbed, retained, and recharged slowly into the water budget. Protection measures are needed to help preserve forests. Forest cover allows for improved water quality and slows overland flow after extreme intense rainfall, and this in turn promotes infiltration into the groundwater. An increase in forest cover through properly funded tree planting programs like 50 million trees is an important part of disaster mitigation. We have many partners, including municipalities and the private sector, and collectively plant close to 2.5 million trees per year and partner with Ducks Unlimited Canada and alternate land use service programs to restore wetlands and other natural features. There is a strong need to enhance and strengthen protection measures for all watercourses, wetlands, and headwater drainage features. Wetlands provide benefits during drought and flood events. They store water, recharge groundwater, allow sediments to deposit, and provide important habitat for fish and wildlife. They help to slow water flow, improve water quality, and sequester carbon. Urban watercourses in many areas consist of historically constructed concrete channels where water flow is restricted and encouraged to flow as fast as possible. One step in flood mitigation can be addressed by allowing watercourses to use their natural floodplains, overflow their banks, and slowly allow the water to move through the system. Some areas that have already been urbanized will be difficult to mitigate. We need to encourage all levels of government to put high priority on reviewing development applications so that development is in the right location. Floodplains and wetlands are not the place to allow development. Conservation authorities support green infrastructure and low-impact development initiatives. We take a watershed management approach to planning and developing strategies for restoration and management. Disaster mitigation should include recovery programs where if homes are in floodplain areas, the government should require floodproofing as a condition of funding. The government, or where possible, rather than building on the same footprint, homes should be moved away from the current and future predicted flood risks. Programs should consider relocation funding rather than rebuilding. Investing in floodplain mapping and increasing the coverage of floodplain mapping will help with disaster mitigation and prevention. Some of the floodplain mapping at Quinte Conservation is from the 1970s. There have been significant changes in infrastructure and land use, and this impacts accuracy of existing mapping. In our region of Ontario, many watercourses do not have floodplain mapping. We require accurate and up-to-date floodplain mapping to guide in decision-making during development reviews. Floodplain mapping needs to include flood scenarios to assist with emergency responses to public safety. For example, if a known area is susceptible to flooding and we have details regarding what flood levels occur at specific flow events, emergency responders will have the tools and information required to know where to direct resources. Investing in more real-time models to better track specific events and see how storms will affect floodplains and the surrounding landscape. Invest in improvements to the existing precipitation, snow depth, and flow monitoring networks. In a flood event, precipitation is typically the most unknown quantity and has the largest impact on flooding. Precipitation is the driver of flood events, so let's build a better network to monitor quantities. Environment and Climate Change Canada is doing a good job with rating curves, which are basically the relationship between water height and flow. However, we need to continue to improve the accuracy and expand the monitoring network. Although dams and infrastructure are not necessarily natural, they play a very important role in disaster mitigation. Investing in flood control and water management structures provides value during extreme events by capturing runoff and controlling the release when appropriate to reduce timing of peak flows. They also are important in reducing the impacts of drought when properly operated. However, reservoirs at these structures are limited to specific capacities and cannot be expected to be the only answer. Dams have substantial public safety and operational risks and liability. Many structures need significant investment to avoid potential worse flooding and drought impacts. In the Quinte region alone, we have 42 water management structures that require significant investment for major and minor and preventative maintenance. As we explore options for these structures, consideration will be given to decommissioning and refurbishing to a natural dam design to allow for less financial needs in the future. In summary, we know that climate change is directly impacting our weather and our communities. There is no time better than the present to start taking the necessary precautions in preparing for these impacts and ensuring that our country is prepared for the future. We need to promote forest preservation, support tree planting programs, enhance and strengthen protection measures for watercourses, wetlands, and headwater drainage features. We need to ensure that development is located in the right place, not in floodplains and wetlands. The natural environment has built-in mechanisms to mitigate extreme weather. We need to allow these features to function properly. Allow intense rainfall to flow into the natural floodplains of lakes, rivers, and wetlands. Urban stormwater management facilities can help, but protection of wetlands and floodplains is a better solution. We need to invest in enhanced and expanded floodplain mapping coverage, continue to invest and improve real-time models to track storm events, continue to invest in improvements to precipitation, snow depth event, and continue to invest in improvements to precipitation, snow depth, and flow monitoring networks. Canada needs to be a leader in addressing the impacts of severe weather events. This committee is tasked with an important focus that cannot be ignored.